Today is the final cherry on top for this week and for me. So, in the morning, I pressured my mom this time to get me ready sooner and to bring me to school faster. She was still getting ready and she got really mad that I kept on bossing her around as I hurried her up to send me to school. Well, I eventually got to school and it went fine, a little bit earlier than usual, as I'm always doing now, though I did aggravate her a little bit as we did go to school. And she also told me that she ain't gonna pick me up later on. And so, later on during pickup time, I eventually started walking home because I thought she was actually not gonna pick me up, but she was going to pick me up, but it's just like her mood swings, to leave it as that. She says it out of anger, but she doesn't really mean it, and that itself is already a problem that I'm talking about with the complexity of my parents. But without that tangent, let's begin with a zero period. I hung out with the same group this time, obviously a little later, and there were more people, so there's obviously a higher cost to enter into the group. I froze in conversation for a little bit, but I was able to eventually join in, though some friction did kind of happen. Many people did come in and out, but it went mostly chill. I wasn't able to hold a conversation myself exactly because I'm not that good at it yet, though I still need improvement for somebody like me. The conversation itself across many people was fragmented, but it still went on fine since it is still a mostly small group. Some people did come in and out this time, so I then initiated a few interactions right at the end. I talked to another person, as I saw yesterday. They said they can't add my Instagram, so that's fine. I added another guy's Instagram, and for that reason, welcome if you're watching this right now. Credit to you. I don't remember names, so I'm gonna keep a few knowable letters, phrases, and names so I can actually attach myself. So credit to Mia, credit to someone else's name who started with A that I don't remember, and the guy whose Instagram I added, and credit to another one. I think you're a link leader. I don't remember exactly your name, but you were there. You jumped in and out sometimes too. Credits to you. Now let's begin. Now, what I observed from my experience in high school is that when it comes to sociality, many groups join not out of personal choice, but partly because we're all still children. Of course, we'd still move around for friends, but because we got work and assignments. Since I do not have classes with some of these people, I have to manually fix a position myself by initiating the interaction myself and making myself known. Friend groups are diffuse sometimes, and if my goal is to make myself known some more and maybe to initiate more interactions, then interaction and identity is the next reasonable action. And the friend groups themselves are interconnected for many reasons. While I am not yet in a social home yet, it is their social home. And there are multiple properties, of that same social home. So they all connect different houses that all connect to the same place. And also, as an add on to the conversation, then I prefer whole wheat flour instead of corn masa flour when it comes to certain foods such as burritos. I know you guys were talking about tamales earlier, but I'll cut on that anyway. Now we're gonna jump to first period. It went mostly well. The Spanish teacher decided that instead of a test, we would do a game of Chihuahua. I think this is a Mexican style game with a little bit of American elements, wherein you draw your own animal, you place it on the school board, and then the teacher gives out random questions for us to answer and picks out teams by a dice. If we get it wrong, we attack our own animal that is drawn. If we get it right, then we attack two other animals on two different teams. Technically, you could attack yourself, so you'd still lose points. It's a three-strike system. If you are hit three times, then you are out. Your board animal is out. The thing is that this game was a tie. Three teams were still up, and the period came over, so no one won. Eventually, this was a stalemate. And I went with my old table group for that game, and it went smoothly. No arguments given. We knew what to do, and we coordinated who would go and what answers would be given. We did do our daily diary entry for Spanish, so I did answer the wrong question, so I had to think on the word for the correct one the teacher was asking me, and it took me time. Of course, like yesterday, but today. When the teacher asked us to come up with words for pharmacy during the Chihuahua game itself, not during the diary entry, he did not want the other kid who answered the word condom in Spanish yesterday to go up to the board and put it as an item for pharmacy. So, he did not pick that team, or at least the dice that he did to pick the team was not that team. So, thankfully, yes. Although I would have done the same thing if I was picked anyway, but even though that's not really funny at all. But okay, second period. I talked to a new English speaker and I told him how English has multiple verbs to describe one thing. I told him in that to be a real and complete fluent speaker, you must know how to name things many ways. I gave him an example of the basketball court and how people were playing there right now. I would say that they're playing with the basketball, they're moving with the basketball, they're using the basketball, they're utilizing the basketball. All of these are correct terms, and after teaching him a little bit of complex English like that, I told him that in his native language of Mandarin, they may speak their own words much faster for certain tenses, but English requires you to speak slowly and speak densely like this. This is why I have to speed up my video to like 110, even to 150% speed. I then self played volleyball for a little bit right after and right at the end, and then I saw how throwing volleyball against the fence of the little PE post it creates a little bit of a bounce back effect where you could technically beat this. Though the teachers kept asking me as I was walking down to return it for me to walk faster, they muttered to themselves, quote unquote, this guy. And then, like an attack on my own ego, I admit, I then put a check on their own ego and on their own madness, saying, quote unquote, who's this guy? And then the class eventually ended. They said that it was me. So eventually, it was more of a one-off joke. I eventually headed back to the locker, changed my clothes, and headed back to next period. And for PE period, y'all, I usually choose just to put on my PE shirt. For my PE shirt, I wear it for the entire day. It can be either a gray unmarked shirt, a black unmarked shirt, and then I wear it for the entire day. Make sure not to sweat too much, and then just change the pants. So it's much easier to transfer between periods. And credit to the teacher, credit to the Mandarin speaker I talked to. Third period, this time for the final of the Socratic seminar, the final day. My school partner, who did not speak English as well, eventually had to speak up. She used a computer that I had, and she said something off of my own ideas that she could not come up with on her own mind, although she could in her own native language. She's new to English, so God bless her on her journey as an English woman in America, but fine, mostly. But I think I goofed off a little too often because the kid of me took advantage of my easy laughter, even when it comes to some things that are not objectively funny. And he said, quote unquote, blackamogas, 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 and I ended up repeating some of it. And he said, ha 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 ha, it's so funny, ha 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 ha. Then he created friction against another girl who acted playfully protective, saying, "What did you say to my friend?" quote unquote, thinking it was some sort of cuss word, but it was not a cuss word. Of course, I don't mean to be racist, but even laughter is uncontrollable when someone says it at a wrong time, obviously. Then the teacher in this class changed it up and put a slide of questions instead of a single Google document, and he talked most of the time. It was a conversation between the students, but it wasn't enough, at least in his eyes. A funny moment here is that one student told me to go to the hot seat in the front where we answer arguments if you're going in the back. I told him that I was in the cold seat, and they answered me saying, "Wow, that is very surprising. Alpha male presence, bro, is cold," type of response. And it was a joke, obviously, everybody got it. But the teacher eventually told us to write down the solutions. But I put in the slides where he was presenting the questions. I thought that we were supposed to find questions from like the situations he was presenting, not like the actual solutions. So I ended up confusing both of them. I was supposed to write down the solutions that were written down on the board, not just like find questions out of like the situations that was explaining. So I got kind of confused on that. I already modified it to fix it up, so that's fine, even though I might get a little bit of a lower score. And obviously, for my partner and for myself, I answered yes in that we did good as on a presentation. We did good on everything except going to the hot seat. Even though some of that is objectively not true, I admit, it is whatever. Fourth period, we continued notes about World War II, and we began just on the first chapter. I was debriefed about the project this year and that how more given details will be given about it next week. I've been thinking about the idea where I shorten English and kind of romancify it from a Spanish and Italian roots and taking inspiration from those languages. For example, of the becomes del in Spanish. So in English, I would shorten those same repetitive words and make it a little bit easier. I took an entire unit of notes for this. And if you guys want to see it, I'll post it to my Instagram if you guys do want to take note about it because I think this makes it a little bit easier in English because when you're taking notes, the teacher is usually speeding up your slides fast. So instead of saying like of the, I would just put O apostrophe the and make it a little bit faster. So there's an example of that. Lunch period. I became a little too hesitant during this period when I sat down near a girl at lunch. She decided to sit down near me since the table I was in was empty. I thought both of you guys for lunch, the girls that I hang out usually with, I thought both of you guys were coming in for lunch today. So there's like two people. So I kind of hesitated between staying there where the girl was just sitting down and minding her own business or going to the other empty table there is because there's spots for two people. I was kind of hesitating and I was a little confused. So instead, I decided just to move to the other table just to be sure. I don't mean to be like separating myself away from the girl who was sitting alone, but I mean to be in that if there's two people, it's best to make sure that there's space for two people. The conversation went mostly fine, not much to note about. I did talk about why I don't always eat breakfast when I sleep late, and when I do wake up early, I do need to get to school early, so that does remove my chance to actually cook a nice breakfast, and that's a problem because not many people would wake up for me to cook me breakfast. My mom, she oversleeps, and my grandma, God bless her, she's in heaven, and my dad, he's also a nurse, so God bless him. You asked me why I wake up early in the morning, so I'll make the answer for everyone. I wake up early because I want to interact with random people and set myself up with random friend groups. It's one of the few periods, where the zero period, where I can actually make friends with people who I don't usually see later on in high school. So that's why I wake up early, even though I would not take a zero period class. I'll definitely leave it like that. And also, yes, to answer this, when I do bike to McDonald's, I do prefer to buy Egg McMuffins because those are really good, sometimes without cheese, sometimes with cheese. I also told you guys about the English shortened text, and I'll post it on my Instagram. Want to see an example? So here you go. Fifth period, I bet 6 to 7 cents that one of the students was going to be late, and I was correct again. The teacher sarcastically laughed us off, and the teacher marked him late, presumably. We did a quiz, and the boys made some funny remarks, and the teacher said, quote unquote, "We are moving seats because some of you guys don't know how to shut up," quote unquote, which is a remark to the boys' funniness and also annoyance in the class. Then the late student that I talked to before said apparently that he's dating the girl next to her, and the girl said to me that she's not. They're kind of like that romance pseudo couple in high school, at least in the classroom. They're the type of person that you'd see in High School Musical for the best and worst reasons, especially if they were on iCarly too, for the best and worst reasons also. And during the quiz, the teacher asked to all of the class, "Why are you looking at my face? Look at your own Chromebook," she says, as a way to stop kids from looking at her. For most of it, it went well. I got a 16 out of 26, even though the graded answer responses do need to be reviewed. This was about Lord of the Flies, just for those who want to know. For sixth period, I told my friends during math class the idea of modified English, but they ended up laughing themselves off at me. After I showed them, I jokingly said, "Speak English, peasants." You say meat and pork, I say veal and livestock, which is probably the cringiest thing I could say. But for most of it, they had a conversation about languages, which one of them is really a language fanatic, and how, like other boys, they also made funny remarks about each other and also said to each other cuss words and that they really hate each other. Even though these messages, they don't really mean it literally, I didn't participate in this because, like, boy dynamics in high school, it is still a form of toxicity. Even saying something that, even though you're kidding, I don't really participate in that type of stuff. And I do find it pretty rude to say. Even between boy to boy interactions, they do kind of be rough with each other. I don't want to be that type of a person, so I'm just going to be remaining, right? Even though it's a little awkward. awkward. For a lighter moment, my friend told me that he got an 82% and he bragged it to the teacher. He said he was proud, and I agreed too that it's good that he has that score. But I still question, why did you brag to the teacher that you have a mediocre score? Like, bro, in class, even in last year, you were still playing around most of the time. Like, of course you're going to be proud of this, but this is a survival grade, not an improvement grade. Like, you are not improving because you want to learn math. You're improving because you want to pass the class. Like, sure, for in 2 years, their grade's not gonna matter, but like, try to lock in. As I pre-scumptiously vent to the people right here. Sorry, guys. But when they were loud, I did try to tell them to stop being so loud, but they ended up like cussing to each other and even to other people publicly and messing around with others. They even said cuss words to the next group, and I literally told them to stop. But momentarily, I was stuck in the chaos, and I did try to mess around myself. But even though I eventually stepped out of it and I did homework first, I tried to tell them to stop, but they ended up saying like more cuss words to each other. It's a good reminder because I remember back in fifth period yesterday and the days before, where I took a quiz about Lord of the Flies, and yesterday where we had chapter 7, and where Ralph and Jack and the group temporarily joined into a ritual about slaughtering a pig, and how ritual sayings as they were pretending to kill a pig, and how Robert, who got caught in the middle, almost got killed. And Ralph stepped out of it eventually, as everyone knew that happens in Lord of the Flies, and eventually tried to tell the others to stop, even Jack too. And to connect this back, my friends, instead of hunting, by cussing to each other and like making a loud blowing in the class, they have become linguistically cruel. The power of mob mentality, just as it was in that moment in chapter 7 of Lord and the Flies, appears again over here. It took me over, like I was a Ralph myself, temporarily, as they both messed around and I messed around, even though I eventually overcame it. I tried to stop them, but they thought I was kidding. They said it so loudly that even a girl said nearby, "Why am I in this class?" quote unquote, because it was so chaotic. And another one even agreed to. Eventually, like Ralph, I was able to overcome this mob mentality and remain in a standstill position until dismissal. And Samuel, please stop cussing in class. And he also told me that you didn't want to attend your father's mowing session in the morning because you want to go do something else and just rest. So that's why instead you'll be going to the school's Talon slash Saturday school. And I find that quite interesting. Anyways, half credit to my friends in the period. Not like full credit, but since you guys are messing around. And that's really it for most of this period. Also, if I forgot, credit to my friend at lunch. Credit to the people I talked to in the morning, and credit to like the random interactions that I may have made that. And yes, definitely credit to the two girls right as I was transitioning from third period to fourth period. I think I've talked to you guys before. You're the fluent Spanish speakers, if I can remember, the ones I did talk to a few days ago. And he did come from one of the math classes that I was in last year. The one his teacher name started with C, if I remember. Other than that, thanks for watching this video.